We all have blind spots. Everybody's got blind spots. You have blind spots, and I have blind spots. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could all see our blind spots? Wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody loved us enough, cared enough about us to show us our blind spots? I want to talk to you about a particular blind spot that is hindering your ability to succeed in marriage. It's getting in the way, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal. This one could probably be ranked as a number one blind spot when it comes to marriage and to relationships. So, what is it? What is the number one, but number three? Let's call it number three. Since it's on our list as number three, we're going to talk about the blind spot called stacking conflicts or unresolved conflicts. I'm Rod Harrison. I am a executive marriage coach and relationships expert. I'm grateful to be able to serve couples and help them grow, especially couples who are succeeding wildly in their professional lives. I'm talking ballers, people who are doing great things, people who are building amazing things in their careers, but struggling in their private life and personal relationships. So let's talk about this next blind spot called the inability to resolve conflict. That's what I call it. But more to the point, it is stacking conflicts. Are you guys in a relationship where conflicts just keep piling up, one after the next, after the, like you never resolve anything? You just kind of, all right, whatever. And you just keep moving on. Sometimes that feels like success in the short run, but it's actually hindering your ability to succeed in the long run. So, what do you do, and why is this such a significant issue? I'm going to show you, I'm going to talk to you about 5 things that you can do to stop stacking conflicts in this video. And it's actually going to help you begin to learn how to resolve conflicts so that you can land the plane without feeling icky, without feeling like you're drifting from one another, without feeling like, you know what, you're getting on my last nerves. My nerve. Y'all know what I'm saying, right? I want to teach you how to stop stacking conflict. So, you know what's true with most couples? Most couples are not good at resolving conflict. Most couples have not seen, most individuals have not seen healthy conflict resolution. Some people just, they don't want to deal with conflict. They want to act like it doesn't exist. They don't want to wade into it. They get anxious, they get nervous, they get quiet. Some people pull away. Some people become rage filled. We just don't handle conflict well generally. That's most people. So if that's you, you're not weird or odd, right? You're just not. It's a very normal thing. Some people just like to play happy, like it's always happy. Things are always, hey, let's just be happy because we're happy. Why have conflict? Why don't we just, can't we all just get along? Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if it were that easy? Some people don't resolve conflicts because they think they're never the cause of anything. Like they're never the problem. They couldn't do anything wrong. They couldn't possibly do anything wrong. So why would you have conflict with me? They think. Yeah. So conflicts stack. They keep growing. And the longer they stack, the longer they grow, the more resentment is harbored. Am I on your doorstep right now? Am I in your living room, in your family room? Am I at the kitchen table in your house right now when it comes to how you and your spouse or your partner deal with conflict? Hey, I'm telling you, if you can remove the blind spot related to how you handle conflict, you guys can have an extraordinary relationship. And I'd love to show you how it goes. So now we're going to talk about some different types of people, right, in terms of how they handle conflict. But none of this is personal, so y'all chill out. It's not personal. It's just styles that we have, is ways that we deal with conflict. So we call some people people who like to withdraw, right? They like to shut it down. They don't want to talk. Leave me alone. I'm leaving. I'm going to my own space, right? Some people just shut down emotionally. They become like deer caught in headlights of a big truck, and so they don't know what to do, and they just do nothing, and that can frustrate some people who want to actually resolve conflicts because they are going to keep pursuing it and coming after, and we call those the pursuer types. They're going to keep coming after. They're going to try to get it done, and that seems noble. It seems kind of rational and right and reasonable. The only problem with that is if you are a pursuer type trying to make a withdrawer type deal with the conflict, then you make it more difficult for them to deal with the conflict. That's how it goes. And so, whatever your way of dealing with conflict is, why don't you just note that and just recognize you probably have some blind spots in it, at least a blind spot in the way that you like to deal with it. And the reason you and your spouse or your partner can't figure out how to stop stacking these conflicts up is because you're not aware of how you come into it and how you deal with it, or perhaps you're not giving consideration to the way the other person uh, is experiencing the conflict. All right. So let me just say this: if you got two people who are withdrawers, it's really dangerous. Really dangerous. If two people are always going to their corner, won't talk, one's eating dinner upstairs, the other one is eating dinner downstairs, right? Hey, how you doing? I'm good. And they don't have anything. Sometimes they don't even say that, right? They just can't resolve conflict. What happens is the pain is becoming so intense on the inside. I'm talking about the emotional pain that it's like this dam of resentment begins to build up and build up and build up and build up to the point where either the dam breaks and there's a major explosion, the dam breaks and there's a I'm done, I'm out, I can't do this anymore, or the dam breaks and there is some deep emotional breakdown. All of those are possible. Whatever the dam breaking describes in that relationship, it's not good. It's not good. These people, even if they don't divorce, by the way, will end up living in a home that's cold and quiet and loveless, and the kids will come over or be there and be like, they don't they don't even really talk. They don't even really get along. They ain't saying nothing. Everybody's just here. We're just here. Everybody's sort of tiptoeing around the tension, and it's miserable. I've seen it with coaches with couples that I have coached, but you can break through it. So let's talk about what it takes. Can we do that? How do you stop? Here's the first thing: you have to acknowledge emotional needs. This goes back to the last video, the number two blind spot, right? You have to learn to acknowledge emotional needs. Like you have them, your spouse has them, you both have them, and you may not know this, but the emotional cry is for connection. People are really crying out for connection. They just don't know how to get it. And so sometimes the anger is really a cry for connection. I've got one couple that I love working with. They are amazing. When we first started, he was that guy who was always in pursuit of his wife to resolve conflicts, and she would withdraw. She'd go to her bedroom, she'd close the door, and when that happened, he would just like lose it because it was so painful for him. And when I could help them begin to see that, they learned how to begin to acknowledge how painful it is for the one who was withdrawing, as well as, and especially, well, maybe not especially, but equally for the person who was pursuing because when she left, it felt like she was leaving him, and he had been abandoned by death, by the death of a loved one. And so I'm just telling you, you have to learn and choose to acknowledge that there is an emotional need. Stop looking just at what's happening on the outside of the person and learn how to look at what's happening inside of the person. Pay attention to it, appreciate it, respect it. All right. So you got to ask and articulate. You said, what do you mean, Rod? Ask and articulate. Just ask this question: what do you need from me emotionally? Just, you got to ask the question. Both of you have to ask that question. This is real stuff for real mature people, or at least for people who want to mature, right? What do you need from me emotionally right now? That's a that's a game changer. That's a grown people. That's a question for people who really want to be right and be well. Ask a question. And how you answer the question, how you articulate rather the answer to that question is also very important, because the Bible says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? James chapter 4. What causes fights and quarrels among you? It says you want something, but you're not getting it. You don't get it. And when you don't get it, you fight, you kill, you murder. This is because you're not getting what you want. And then when you do ask, you ask with the wrong motive so that you may spend what you get on yourself. You make it about you. And so it can't just be about yourself, but it's got to be about the other person. Like, what do you need? How can I be more aware, more attentive to what it is that you need, Isn't that major? What you need. What is it that you need from me? So you got to ask that question. And this is a hard part sometimes for people who are not accustomed to being aware of themselves emotionally. They don't know what they need. Or if they are flooded in the conflict, they don't know how to articulate what they need. Maybe it's worth taking a time out to say, I don't really know, right? This is a lot right now. This is feeling really heavy. Can we come back to this in an hour or after dinner or before we go to bed, right? Sometimes it's important to call the time out, because if you can't, it's one thing to ask the question. It's another thing to be able to articulate what you need. By the way, can I give you this? This is free, y'all. This is free. People who can't express what they want and need within a relationship context are struggling to feel safe emotionally. In fact, most people who can't articulate what they need and what they desire within a relationship, they never thought they had permission to ask. They never thought that it was safe to ask. In fact, maybe when they were growing up, they were shut down a lot. And so they learned, let me just not ask. Got a client who's been that way. She's afraid to ask. She says, because every time I want something, I ask for something. When I was growing up, I never got it. So give your partner room to articulate. Don't stress them out. Don't press them out. Like, back up, back it up, slow it down. Like, chill out. Give them room. Like, hey, I'll give you some room. Like, you need some room. You need some space. I really want to know what you need, but tell me what kind of space you need. All right. Is that too much for y'all? Hope that's helpful. Acknowledge emotional needs. Ask and articulate. What do you need? And then share what you need. Both of you should do that, by the way. It's not just one way. It's two people in the conflict, for real. All right, here's the third thing to do. Always go below the surface. Similar to what I said about acknowledging emotional needs, right? You got to not just see the behavior, but start trying to understand, oh, something deeper is going on. Right. I'm telling you, this was such a revelation for me. It changed my life, changed my marriage, when I became aware that it wasn't just about what we were saying and displaying on the outside, but we started really paying attention to what was going on the inside. So here's some things you want to remember. Remember that a raging spouse is crying out for connection. I know some of y'all think, man, when my spouse is coming for me, when they are angry or when they are like pursuing this conflict, they are like getting on my nerves. It's a whole lot. But I'm telling you, trust you me, they are crying out for connection. They're crying out for connection. They really want some connection. A raging spouse turned cold and distant is exhausted and is giving up. When a spouse who's normally sort of raging or pursuing, right, and they're like, yeah, whatever, I'm good. I'm not even going to try. They're not trying anymore because they are giving up. They have grown weary, right? Conflicts keep stacking. Nothing ever gets resolved. Every time they try to talk about it, every time they try to connect, nothing's happening, and they start giving up. They start becoming discouraged, and that's really important. Um, it's really important that you go below the surface, right? You don't just see their rage or their pursuit as a negative thing. You got to see it for what it is, what it really is. They really would like to connect. They really would like to resolve this. They really want there to be some answers. Yeah, there are times when some spouses are raging because they just don't have any emotion. They don't have enough emotional maturity to regulate their emotions. Yeah, sometimes that's the case, but most often they really want connection. How about this? A withdrawing spouse is feeling overwhelmed and sometimes ashamed and embarrassed. You'd be amazed at how many people don't know how to have conflict. And sometimes they feel like, okay, I was wrong again. They feel ashamed. They feel embarrassed. They don't know what to do. And they've never seen conflict handled well. They didn't grow up with it being handled well. And sometimes when they saw it, just wow, they just like, they even as children oftentimes they would shrink away. So don't put your spouse down, right? This is where you got to go beneath the surface. Don't put them down because they don't know how to handle conflict. There's a reason why they don't know. Can you not beat them down? Like, don't beat them down. Like, care enough about them. You with them, you should love them enough to try to understand what's up. But here's what we do sometimes when we don't understand. We make our own fears and anxiety the priority rather than trying to figure out what experience is the other person having with me. That's too much. That's too much. I'm sorry. Um, how about this? A withdrawing spouse who's becoming more distant starts to feel misunderstood, unknown, unsafe, unloved, unseen, uncared for. When a spouse begins to feel that way, they get to a point where they have no more energy. And this can take, sometimes it can take years to get to this point, but it can get to this point, and it's really not a good place for your marriage or for the person who is withdrawing more and more and more. One client said to me recently, I can shut everybody out. It's what we call stonewalling. I think Dr. Gottman helped us with that one, right? It's called stonewalling. And he's like, I can shut everybody out. And it's how I protect myself, right? He doesn't know really how to deal with the conflict. And when he feels like he's constantly being blamed as if though nothing he does is enough, he just shuts down, shuts out, withdraws, stonewalls. And that's like a turtle putting their head into a shell to keep from feeling like it's unsafe outside the shell. All right, so here's the next thing that you can do to stop these conflicts from stacking. Right, it is you got to admit your part. This is where the blind spots become very prominent. You got to admit your part. Um, Sometimes your part is not something you did, but something you neglected. Did I say that too fast? Sometimes your part is not something you did, it's something you neglected. You neglected to see what was really going on with the other person, what they needed. Perhaps your inconsistency, maybe you didn't show up in a way you promised you would, and it keeps happening. And so your spouse could be triggered again and again and again because you keep showing up the same way, the most unhelpful way. And so yeah, so you got to admit your part. Maybe you said something to wound your spouse. Maybe you just had a nasty attitude. Maybe, I don't know what happened, but you want to admit your part. I love the principle in the Bible about confession. If we confess our sins, God is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Right? Just confess it. Just admit it. Just say, hey, I was wrong. Hey, try that with me for a moment. I was wrong. Okay? Can I give you another part to that? I'm very sorry. Please forgive me. I don't know why those three phrases of about three words are so difficult for some people, right? Like they just can't admit they were wrong, that it was their fault. Admit it, right? Admit your part. Everybody can, well, not everybody can, everyone should. And most often it's two people who have some part in the conflict. Sometimes it's not, but most often it is. All right, so here's the last one. Try to agree with each other. You may not agree on everything, but can we agree not to disagree? Can we agree that what you need is important and what I need is important? Can we agree to that? How about that? Can we agree that we're not enemies? I'm not out to get you. You're not out to get me. We're in this for the love of our relationship and our family and our future, right? We're not enemies. Can we agree that we're not enemies? How about if we agree that we both have something to learn? If we agree that we both have something to learn, see, we don't have to agree to disagree if we agree deeper, right? Let's agree that it's not always about the issue. You know what I'm saying? Like agree that this issue is really not the thing, because sometimes we are in conflict about something, and that's not really the point. Oftentimes, the point is that I feel wounded, or the other person feels wounded on the inside. They feel neglected. They feel overlooked. They feel taken for granted. They feel unseen, whatever it might be. Can we agree on the real issue? So you want to find agreement. Agreement is so powerful. How can two walk together unless they agree? How can we have a relationship? How can we journey together unless we can find agreement? Agreement will change the game, because what you don't agree on is almost always less important than what you choose to agree on, what you choose to agree to. And these are some key areas for finding agreement. Hey, you don't have to let conflict stack in your relationship. And you're like, yeah, but you don't know, Rod, how big a conflict we're in right now. Some of you are in some deep conflicts. Let me just say to you that this framework that I'm sharing with you can help you, right? It doesn't matter how big it is. You can still resolve the conflict. You can still find resolution to it. You don't have to give up on your relationship. You don't have to walk away and leave so many wonderful things on the table, a future and a past and children and all of those things. Don't stack the conflict. Learn to resolve it. All right. I hope that this is helpful to you today. I hope you feel like I got a framework that I can um, check my own blind spots when it comes to how I deal with conflict, how I show up in conflict, my style, and that nagging habit that you have when you're in conflict, right? Just see the blind spot, admit it, acknowledge what's going on. Just try to see beneath the surface, acknowledge the emotional needs. You follow me? So that you can start resolving conflicts. And the more conflicts you resolve in a healthy way, the more confidence you will have that you can resolve them in a healthy way, and the more connection you will develop in your relationship, because conflicts are not sitting in the atmosphere like an albatross waiting to be tied around your neck. All right. Hey, I hope this was helpful. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And so we'll see you then.